Hello, internet friends. It is Saturday night. Welcome to Quests and Cthulhu. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, you notice, unfortunately, Nick is a little under the weather, and just to be totally safe and to keep us from also getting to share in his plague, Nick is celebrating alone with the acolytes of Nurgle, and we hope he feels better. He's probably in the chat. He'll be in the chat at some point, probably.
That is a good note for anyone, anytime, anywhere.
Yes.
If you have symptoms, stay away.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling well, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And by keep it to yourself, I mean stay away from me.
Amy had that the other day. It's like one of our hosts was, I got this weird, I must have eaten something. I'm paraphrasing here. Something.
You know, when you're sick, grammar is
Must
the
have
first.
eaten.
It was the sushi last night. That's why my stomach hurts. And then halfway through the day, somebody's like, you better take one of these tests.
Oh, no.
Yep, you've got COVID.
Yeah, that is no fun. But we are here to celebrate the closing of the third season of the
Man.
Great Dane Society.
Can you
My
believe
goodness.
it's been that long?
It's been a while.
21 episodes. I think that it's weird because it felt like a long
It
campaign.
felt longer.
It definitely felt longer than.
Yeah, I think part of it is we'll talk about it, but part of it is the sort of the travel scope and that sort of thing
Right,
that
sure.
made things through there. But so this episode is a chance for the players to ask about all the dragon hordes they missed, but it's also a chance for you, the chat, our friends in chat and our friends on Discord, to ask questions of the players, of me, that sort of thing. And at the end of tonight, we're going to tell you what season 4 of the Great Danes might look like. Our Patreons already know. We love our Patreons. Our tavern upkeep is at some number that is very small that I can't see, but it's awesome, whatever it is.
God, that is tiny. It's at 66%.
6%.
66%.
66%.
I have to hold it up to my nose.
66%, which is fantastic. And that is thanks to you, our Patreons, you folks who subscribe on Twitch, which I tried to do, but it wouldn't let me log in.
I do have a question. Did we do a After Dark last week?
No.
No,
Okay.
because we were doing
Because
this.
it was done.
Exactly.
Because
We weren't going to do it after
Yes.
dark because that's what this whole thing is.
Right.
this is before dark. This is...
So for
Or
our
is this
lovely
just
patrons,
dark?
So for our lovely patrons, we also will not have an after dark for this episode because this whole episode is the after dark.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean we don't appreciate you. It just
lied.
means that, all we do is we talk about what we talked about.
Talk.
We...
That is a G.I. Joe shirt.
it is.
All
it is.
right.
And
Excellent.
Thank you.
that's an excellent segue because we have a fun scheduling announcement, as hopefully many of you know, but maybe YouTube listeners, this is news to you. On November 26th, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we are doing a 24-hour charity live stream in this studio. We're going to have 3 setups. So we're going to have here the RPG setup, the board game setup, which you saw on Tuesday if you watched the board game that was played. We're also going to have a chat show set up. So we're going to be going all over the studio, doing things, dodging people who are sleeping because 24 hours. It's going to be a whole thing. I will be, who knows what we're going to be doing, but I know one thing, I will be playing Dread, and the reason I wore the shirt is that this is a clue about that Dread game.
Ooh.
Something exciting for folks to cue in on.
I'm dreading
It's not a
it.
secret, right?
What, the characters that are being played?
No, the game.
Oh, Dread.
It's
Yeah,
Dread.
Yeah, we're playing Dread, but that's not what it was a clue about.
Well, the Baroness is running Dread.
Well, she just give it all away. Yes, the Baroness.
You actually, if you want to promote something and get people to attend, you have to promote the thing that makes
I
it
like the
attendable.
tease. The
Yes.
tease.
Yeah.
Yes, the Baroness is going to be running the Dread game, and I'm running the D&D Mitten.
Yeah, there's gonna be like a
in the evening.
6-hour mitten or something.
It'll be just under 4 hours, and I'm going to be enforcing that because
Nice.
Thomas doesn't think I can.
I think it's okay.
Challenge
The
accepted.
ceiling falls. And,
I've never played a 10th level character. I'll just say that.
That's okay. I've played several.
Okay. I hope Matt has.
Yeah.
Yes, I will be sitting down with Matt and his character, whoever, whatever it turns out to be from our lovely patrons.
Yeah, our patrons made the characters for the Mitten, so that's big fun.
It's still open until tomorrow night. You can still submit characters. Go into the Discord and the Patreon Mitten Return section to submit your characters.
We had a fantastic individual join the Patreon just to make a character for the Mint.
Thank you, Adam.
Nicely done.
Who also, if you are into podcasts, Inspiration Point with Andrew Gertzen and Adam Power. It's
Yes.
a fantastic podcast.
I'll actually be bingo style, playing 3 different characters at once. I'm just going to have them in front of me. And do you remember those days? Did you ever have to do that?
Yeah.
And you didn't? Yeah.
Did I? And there were also many days where I just read the module by myself.
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, that was
It's going to be exciting. I'm jazzed to be here and see everything that's going on.
Jazzed kind of looks like asthma.
No, super jazz hands.
Super jazz hands.
Super jazz hands.
Well, there will be that. That'll be if we play a masks game. That'll be the super jazz hands can get involved.
Or Mutants and Masterminds.
Or Mutants and Masterminds. Although it seems more a masks idea.
Say
than-
jazz.
Maybe. I've seen some weird concepts come through when I played Mutants and Masterminds.
It's true. It's true.
I'll be a
It's
mutant,
super-
right?
The charity stream going to be 24 hours, and it is for an amazing charity. We are going to be supporting the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is I went and checked out their website and looked at the great work they're doing in terms of setting up programs for people having voices that you can talk to when you are having these feelings. And I mean, that's the most important thing. If you are struggling, if you feel, if you're having ideation or anything like that, having someone that you can talk to who is not judgmental, is not going to try and is not trying to do anything but just talk and listen to you is so important. And that's a big part of what they do there. Can't say enough good things about the cool work they are doing, and so excited to support that work.
Yeah.
And we definitely did, research through the charity watcher things to make sure that they were using as many of those dollars for actual services rather than
They had
million
a
dollars.
really high rating.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
Speaking as a nonprofit employee, the overhead ratio thing is an unfortunate litmus because taking care of your employees is a good thing. Now, don't don't abuse that, but we went. There was a real phase in the early 2000s where everyone was like, "Well, this charity is using 10% of their of every gift for overhead, and I can't give to them." And it's like,
10% is fine.
Yeah.
30 to 40%
Right,
is when I
it's,
start to get squinty-eyed.
It's those foundations that give 2% of whatever to charity or
Yeah.
something.
Right.
That's
All
what-
I know is that when I do start a charity, I won't have $1 million salary, but I will still be doing good.
Sure.
I think at that point you'll be doing well. That's
Wah, wah.
Oh my lord!
oh no, Dr. Phil in his
Do
back.
not start pulling the accents out now.
Yeah, we're gonna.
No, we'll have to have an accent off. That's what we'll have to do.
Yeah. Oh, we should.
I did that. Remember
Yes.
for Alondra's game?
Oh, we
I
should
had a
do it.
table, and I would just every time somebody gave bits, I would roll, and my accent would change.
Oh, all right, good idea.
We have some friends of the show that we want to shout out, as always. I didn't bring dice. This feels weird.
we have no dice that need rolling today.
But our friends at Birds of Paradise, the official dice of the Great Dane Society, we roll them. You should too. Birds of Paradise, you can use our code at their website. It's probably something with dice in it. You can enter our code chaotic at checkout, and you'll get 20% off of whatever you order. And there are some gorgeous dice on there. Our friends at Hero Forge, you can make a mini of your own character. You can finally design that, what was it? There's something in the Discord about Tabaxi barbarians or something, and you can make that into a Hero Forge mini. Have it in time for the Mitten, so you can you can show your love for the characters by having it'll be like basketball games, they have the big heads, the posters.
Yeah.
Just hold up the Hero Forge mini of your favorite Mitten character. But you can use our code there, bit.ly/QNC Hero Forge, and we'll get a little kickback on whatever you do, and we appreciate that. Nord Games, awesome people. You can use Chaotic 20 there and get 20% off of your order with them. Is their Kickstarter done? Is it?
It's a good question.
I think it's ending soon.
I did back it, so.
Yeah.
Well, that changes how you see it then. But they have an amazing Kickstarter going on for all sorts of cool stuff. They've got a ridiculous website that I'm not even going to mention. But if you use our code Chaotic20 there, you're going to get 20% off of all your Nord Games stuff.
It has 11 days to go.
11 days.
They're at $171,000.
Nice.
Because it ends at the beginning of December, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I hang out in their Discord periodically. I don't say anything. I just lurk.
Yeah. So just a sneak peek behind the business curtain. The Nord Games fundraise, their Kickstarters are the bulk of the revenue. So, it's like that's what they use to develop a lot of these products, and get them out. So, yeah, $171,000 is a lot, but still, you're paying for them to.
You're paying to let them do awesome things.
Exactly.
And they are well worth supporting.
Very much so.
They do good stuff. We have an affiliate link with Amazon, and my wife used it to order a horrifying thing.
Here, hold on. Give me a moment.
Let's see if
Go ahead and talk about it.
The horrifying thing.
Maybe she'll post a picture in the chat. I don't know. I'll post a picture in the Discord later. But it looks like some sort of Cthulhu nightmare squirrel. It is a squirrel finger puppet, and it is a head and 4 paws. That is a terrifying. It's. I'm not sure if it's worse off somebody's hand or on somebody's hand. It's pretty bad either way.
Yes.
But she used the Amazon link for that, which I'm sure really added up. I'm sure I hope you didn't pay more than $5 for that. But you can use our Amazon affiliate link, buy crazy things. Now, during the holidays, we're not going to be like calling people out because we don't want to spoil a present.
Yeah.
In case your aunt is watching, you don't want her to know you got her all that bondage tape.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? Different aunts are into different things.
I really want to. This is 78% off. You know what? If this is a gift, it might be a gift. I'm gonna have to post it. It is a cat nest, instant noodle shaped cat house.
Whoa.
Is it fabric or cardboard? Because we might be buying that tonight. Oh, that's like fabric.
Ooh,
So cute.
That's cute.
that's beautiful.
It is a noodle cup shaped cat house.
You can have a cup of cat.
Wow.
Puts the meow in MSG.
Wow. Yeah.
No.
Depends on where you're eating Chinese food and what continent you're on.
Ooh.
Well, that just got ugly.
Ooh, Don.
So when I've been to Beijing a number of times, and I think that
That was quite a sigh.
that country must export all of the chicken breasts out of the country, and the chicken thighs and the chicken legs, and you're left with whatever else is available, because
Rachel just posted a picture of the squirrel in the Discord. It is, yeah.
I think I have to get it.
It kind of looks like, you remember in The Thing when the dog starts spouting all of those weird appendages and...
spoiler alert, I haven't seen it.
You've not seen The Thing?
No.
I haven't either, although I know the premise.
Yeah.
It's Among Us, basically.
Yeah. Well...
Well, am I wrong?
Yeah. Because it's not a traitor, it's an alien. It's some sort of
I mean, that's basically what the traitor is in Among Us. Have you ever seen them open up and have the stomach mouth with the tongue that pierces through you?
Oh.
That is not a person. That's a traitor, or an alien rather.
I've played Among Us, some, but the thing though is I have tried many times to translate that to Cthulhu. The challenge is if the real trick to the thing is that you don't know who's an alien and who isn't, and there's only one. But so the player elimination aspect is tough, and sort of saying, okay, you're an alien, and you know, then they want to eat somebody else or something and become that person. How do you handle that? Me and my buddy Gil were trying to figure out like how we would do this, and it's too hard. We were going maybe 2 different tables or something, but it's an idea that is like rife for really anything. If you wanted to do D&D, you'd have a doppelganger who like was who joined. Like I've always wanted to do this actually, like start a campaign and I'm just a doppelganger. And I'm just like, nope, I'm a 3rd level wizard. That's me.
Totally a normal person.
And then at some point,
why do you only have a slam attack? That's so weird.
There was an NPC in Waterdeep Dragon Heist who was a doppelganger, wasn't there?
Yeah. You know what I don't get about the doppelganger stat block is they have a slam attack.
Right.
And that's dumb. They should have whatever.
Right, whatever the form they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the point is if that's in their natural form.
Yeah.
And then whatever form they're in, but I don't think they get the abilities, right?
No, I don't know.
I mean, not.
No,
I
no.
don't know. I haven't looked deeply enough into
They're
doppelgangers.
just
Like if I'm a doppelganger mind flayer, I'm not psionic blasting you.
No.
Right.
Not unless you're, secretly a soul knife rogue under it. Then you still have psionics.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it's worth statting. Having levels that you can put into a doppelganger, rogue or wizard.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be the more interesting thing is turning, treating the doppelganger like they now treat a bunch of different monsters in there where you can.
Yeah, you could also just be a changeling.
Yeah.
I think would be.
The changeling, that would make a lot of sense.
I mean, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Well, look at that. We've already talked more D&D than we have Cthulhu. And I think that's it. Are we going to do the opening
Why
thing?
not?
No.
So, podcast listeners, you're getting a rare. This is where the good stuff is. So, thank you all for coming along for this long journey. These 21 episodes, and Children of Fear. And so, I just want to start out by thanking you guys for that awesome story, and also thanking Amy and Dan who sat at this table and were part of this story. It was awesome to have Dan here for.
Dan did such a good job as Tiger. He was hilarious.
Yeah. He was totally game too. I still, he showed up in the studio and I was like, "Hey, do you want to play Tiger?" He's like, "Okay." "Hey, do you want to kill Tiger?" Okay.
I'm sure he got that grin that all of us in the redacted reports know well.
He was very game to play along, which was fantastic. And Amy, who I've said many times before, is probably my muse in role playing. She is always fantastic to have at the table. Someday, probably when she retires, we will have her back. Until then, she belongs to multinational corporations. Because, darn it, she's too good at what she does.
Yeah, we were doing the math. She's going to be out of the country for 18 days in December.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's largely because of extradition treaties.
Yeah.
But part of that's going to be going
Yes, we are
holidaying,
going
right?
to New Zealand.
You're going to Hobbiton. I'm so
We're
jealous.
going to go to Hobbiton.
But you're also going to Mordor. So.
Well,
That's okay.
She does want me to climb a volcano. So
Yeah.
Well, we might not see Thomas again.
No, that's awesome stuff.
as long as she's okay with passing the ring of power off to him, which
that's
I
right.
think will be step 1.
Yeah.
throwing that ring in the volcano. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Yeet.
But also thank you, folks, for coming along and for being a part of this story and your Patreon bits, your bits which break the game in a delightful way, and your ideas and the sort of like even conditional bits give us. So, they give us an idea. Maybe we should blow something up. That
we never not thinking about blowing something up. Let's be real.
when
here.
Amy's not at the table, there's a lot less blowing stuff up.
True.
And random fistfights.
And drunken fistfights. But so this campaign, the kind of has 3 different arcs. It has the beginning, the travelogue, the Silk Road part.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then it has the, we're going to do the ritual, and the build up to the ritual is the second part, and then the third part is the oh crap, we did the ritual, now we have to do the real ritual. part,
Yeah.
and that it's pretty rare, especially in a printed module, to have an anticlimax like that, where it's like you're going to save the day, you screwed the day, and how did that feel as players?
I mean, discouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't sure, like, okay, since we screwed that up, is it just going to end or what, right?
I didn't think it was going to end. Like, I had gotten kind of a little bit of a sneak peek that it wasn't, the ritual wasn't the end, because we talked a little bit about it, but also, I was fully in Gwendolyn's head where it was like, damn it, Eugene was right.
Yeah.
That was the worst part, that Eugene was right.
I mean, I would have, so Dimitri would have stopped the ritual before the killing if he had not critical fumbled his con check on the drinks. Because me as a player, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, my character's tripping balls, so I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting aspect of it. It is hard, that switch, and it's actually tonally, this campaign, partly because of choices we all made, was kind of more dour. It was definitely more downbeat than some of our other stuff, and I think partly that was because of Eugene, where when you
I know you're watching, Nick.
And look, this is no shots fired, because I love everything Nick does.
Oh, yeah, no, he's great.
Later on, I'm going to be sharing some of the Discord messages that Nick sent me about what he wanted to do with Eugene, which are fantastic. But so I'll make the counterpoint. The Stars Are Right crew did this campaign, and the end was this plucky, we're going to do this together. We'll carry you up that mountain, Mr. Frodo. And it was a very different vibe than ours, which was this grudging, I guess we have to do this together sort of thing. Which, neither one is positive or negative. It was just interesting that tone and sort of, the lack of trust amongst the characters. Now, lack of trust amongst characters means that there's tremendous trust amongst the players.
Exactly.
Which is an important point to make. And to go behind the curtain, we definitely talked as a group at times about sort of, if we're going to do this, here's what's going to happen, and how we move forward from that. But it was sort of, that did any of you find trouble sort of getting that motivation to get your character to keep going?
Oh, yes.
I mean, yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
Definitely. The whole thing with Helen. Helen was before she passed, she was thinking, the sacrifice was the big thing. It's who are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? And she was like, well, I'm the youngest and I don't have anything to, so she was trying to, and I think that's part of what got her so, not talking, is that she kept thinking, I'm going to die. And then she did. So, she knew. But at the same point, that was that was shocking.
It was difficult. There was a bit right after the ritual succeeded in what it was supposed to do, just not what we wanted it to do, where I said out of character that Gwendolyn was considering killing herself. And Dimitri immediately was like, yeah, I'm going to shoot myself.
On the flying ship. Yeah. I think there was
no. It was immediately after the ritual. You had to get us into Shambhala very quickly to keep that from happening.
That's right. Yeah. And that's actually why I wanted to do that coda at the end of last episode of getting you all to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To sort of bring that uplifting note at the end to sort of, because otherwise the tone of sort of, well, we saved the world, but at what cost, is sort of a weird ending. And the,
very Lovecraftian though.
Yeah. But I think, that can be kind of one note.
Oh yes, 100%.
Yeah. I would not ever again do a bait and switch like the ritual. Because I think you can do it once and people are like, okay, that was kind of fun. But if it becomes a shtick, that's sort of a, you're taking advantage of things and it becomes a crutch.
And people don't trust you either because they're like, no, that's not gonna. That's not gonna work.
And I mean, there's a certain amount of. So the difference with our second campaign, Down Darker Trails, was, as you've pointed out, you were basically creating the whole story. If you had tried that in Down Darker Trails, we would have stopped trusting you, I think.
Yeah.
But because it was in the written module, like it's part of what's in there. And I think it's less of a trust of you and more of a like, is this in another written module? But I trust you to not mess with us like that.
Yeah, and that
Again.
trust at the table, that trust at the table is a big part of all of this, and it's why Nick can do the crazy things, and Amy as well can do the crazy things that they do at the table, and even Thomas. I mean, the stuff you did in the flying ship, where you were like, you sat on the bullet.
Dimitri had checked out a while.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say this because I know there was some concern about the way that Gwendolyn and Eugene interacted. Nick and I talked frequently. We checked in with each other constantly to be like, are we okay? Are we good? And I trust Nick implicitly, and he seems to trust me well enough that it's like, yeah, no, Gwendolyn hates Eugene. Does not trust him as far as she can throw him, and she's not a very strong woman. But I trust Nick, and he trusts me. So we can, have these huge arguments in character and afterwards go out and get a drink together.
Yeah. One of the things that I admire about Nick as a role player is how what seems utterly chaotic is so planned. He almost, like, sometimes I'm uncomfortable with how planned it is. Poor Nick has to do with me going like, well, let's see what happens. And he's like, here's exactly what I want to have happen. And,
Somewhere between the two of you is a happy medium.
Right, yeah.
There you go.
It's like, I need to have Archibald kill me.
Well, that was,
Yeah.
that was the conversation. Like, so Nick, at the start of before last episode, Nick and I are talking. And he was like, how do we kill Decker? We've got to get Decker out there so that you can, and I had I floated an idea that I had of like, that was not as good as what Nick had, of like, Eugene being the Flash Gordon Hawkman swooping in at the last minute and sort of, doing something to the Children of Fear to like hold off the ritual or something. And Nick's like, what about if Eugene can get there, but he just needs a skull? But for the ritual. And that's why the skull thing became so important. And I was like, that's so much better, because it's just creepy and weird. And it shows that, like, Eugene does the right thing the wrong way for
Everything.
Hopefully a reason. And as a GM, that's what I love. I love players that come up to me with big swings and say, like, hey, here's what I want to have happen. I think that's super important. Like, when I run a con game, at the half point of the con game, when we take the break, if I'm running a 4-hour game, 2.5 hours in, I will say, is there anything that needs to happen in the second half of this game? Just ask the players. And if somebody says we need a car chase, there's going to be a car chase in the second half.
Which is something that I respect a lot about you as a GM. You did that with Masters of Nyarlathotep as well. When we knew we had 7 episodes left, it was what has to happen for your character in order for you to get closure with the story.
Yeah, it's a different thing in a campaign game because then it's about what in your story still needs to like be wrapped up.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, the con game is the microcosm of that.
Yeah, it's just that on speed.
Right.
Yeah, because you still want to leave people with that satisfying experience at the end, whatever that might be.
Yeah, and it's also about you as a GM getting out of the way of what you think has to happen and letting and saying what needs to happen for you, for the players, because oftentimes they have a vision of the game,
Exactly.
they know what needs to happen for their character. And like, Nick's an example of that. He's very good. You're very good, Tiana, about telling me hey, here's something that needs to happen for my character. Thomas, you just go with the flow with everything, which I love. You know,
Well, I mean, Dimitri specifically, when we first started the whole campaign, I'm like, Dimitri is not going to be out in front. He's going to be the doctor to heal people when they get hurt. And
how'd that turn out?
Yeah.
I think the problem was that a lot of us were like, we don't want to be out in front.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking more.
Which turned Nick's story into kind of like the central story, which wasn't a bad thing, but
Yeah. No, and that's like with Helen. You know, she was like the very book thing, and she was about getting things, but she, you know, I'm gonna for this. And I can give it to this museum, and it'll be great, and everybody can see it. And so that was kind of like, you know, that's why she kept going, oh, this would be great to take with us because we could put it in a museum and everybody can see it. I've seen it, you've seen it, everybody can see it. And that it's not a thing that you could do all the time, and it doesn't help you when Eugene goes mad.
I think an interesting like fan fiction, I guess, of Helen might be her like just buying random things at markets and then shipping them off to museums and being like, you know, with a fake lore.
Right.
I like it.
Everyone knows.
Somebody
These people in
help me write
this
that.
part of town, and just like
Yeah, you know, to your
maybe
point,
like
you know.
Julie, there's, you know, that is when you study theater, they talk about it's kind of the difference between being and doing. You know, and like doing is bad acting, being is good acting, and like when you're getting a character, like I have incredibly like conflicting thoughts about playing a character because my one thing is find your thing and hammer it, but then the other thing is don't become one note.
Right.
You know, which sounds
tricky
paradoxical.
balance.
You know, but it's you find that middle of like, you know, everybody knows what your thing is, but you're not like that's not your own. That's not all you are. You know, you're still a three-dimensional thing that does other things. And so for instance, when I was making Les, I was like, okay, my one thing is he's a Southern louche who likes to drink and that sort of thing. And then I was like, oh, but he also eats people.
yeah.
You know,
They,
Wow.
it was interesting.
which actually
I love
think,
it.
I did I spring that on you?
You did.
Yeah.
Not in the middle of the game, though.
Yeah.
You did tell me that in advance.
Yeah.
The springing it on me was it happened in the middle of combat, which was when I was
But
okay.
so that's like when you're bringing your character to the table, you know. So like you were talking about how Helen was like, this is my thing, but I can't do it all the time, you know. And so then the trick becomes why is that? You know, why does she want to do that, and how does that motivation then kind of reflect on other parts of her life, you know, and you know, I think that Amy ran into some of that with Tiger too, where
Sure.
you know she was worried that Tiger was kind of one note and was
Never. Amy, if you're watching this, never. Tiger always surprised people.
Tiger was fantastic. I was a big fan.
So, speaking of Tiger, so we do have a lot of questions in the chat. Thank you for
good.
highlighting them. Please use your channel points for
Yes.
something.
For the love of Christ, use them for something.
So, Tomago Tora says, what do you envision Terminator Guy's heaven to look like?
It's a Target show of just like innocent people that he
Well,
can
we're
mow
doing this further
down.
back.
Yeah, that was, you know, because Tiger and Terminator Guy were
They were very close.
they're
yeah.
tight.
Yeah.
They're very tight.
They were.
Yeah.
Tiger probably thought Terminator Guy was actually. Yeah, Terminator Guy is probably like not in heaven.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
he's probably like, you know, it's going to be a while before Terminator Guy finds anything close to enlightenment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that came in, we can't actually really talk about because Nick isn't here.
Oh.
But NGC457 asked, what the heck was the story behind that actor guy anyway? I can kind of answer that because Nick and I talked about that, and I think you talked about it with him more.
Well, so he has for months wanted to do a character that was essentially a joke, that was an actor who was training for a role and was totally unprepared for he was a good enough actor that when you're in the bar, Decker just seems like, yeah. But once anything actually happens, and Nick super subtly started that even when you were like, what are we doing? Are we, he started like, as soon as you were out of the city, he started like not being so, Decker was like not sure of himself, and but it was subtle. He was slow playing it, and he's like, well, I'm not sure, and that sort of thing.
And then he only had like 2 episodes to
that was
and break Decker.
Yes.
That was part of the problem was that, Decker is a better joke if he goes like a 5-episode arc.
Easy.
Just because the setup was like, it was boom, boom, just here's Decker, he's gone.
Yeah, Nick was very much of the opinion that Decker only worked when we had like 3 or 4 episodes left. I disagree. I think it would have been better for him to come in about partway through.
Yeah.
And you watch the slow collapse of all of his facades. That would have been way more
Yeah,
cool.
if I had it to do over again, I probably would have done Decker instead of Kingdon Ward.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I really liked...
Having a child of fear to mess things up.
Well, yeah, so Kingdon Ward was set up from the beginning. Like, Nick wanted to play he wanted to be a plant.
It's fun to be a bad guy, isn't it?
And so he...
Is that in the module, the Kingdon Ward being...
No,
Oh, okay.
no. Kingdon Ward is not... Kingdon Ward is in the module as a potential person you can meet in Tibet. So funnily enough, the Stars Are Right crew had him show up as well, and he was hated. Like the guy, like, for whatever reason. So like when I was saying, like, in ours, Frank Kingdon Ward is a member of the Children of Fear, and they're like, well, he might as well have been in ours. It was like it was very, like, they just didn't like the guy. It was very funny.
Oh my goodness.
The ukulele thing did not go over well. That was...
Yeah, but you know what? I mean,
no one likes
if you start with a
ukuleles.
harmonica, it's a
Yes.
step up.
Yep.
You're not wrong.
Oh, that's outstanding. But so Nick wanted to, and he wanted to play that, and so I was like, well, okay, and I liked the idea of making Kingdon Ward a Children of Fear, because one thing where I think this module didn't do a great job was the module's called Children of Fear. The Children of Fear need to be like a thing you recognize, and it's not until the second half, the ritual, that they really get involved, and then there's just a guy who's their leader that you meet, and the only time you really meet him is that that scene where in the city where he tries to like talk you out of doing it, and I'm like, well, that just that doesn't matter.
There's no punch to it.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem that I really have had with this module. Masks worked so well because we had the Black Pharaoh just constantly like leaning over us going, I mean, you can move your piece there if you want. It's a mistake, but you can. Like, we had this huge dimensional thing going on, but we had this one personal connection to it all, where it's like, no, we hate you.
Yeah, and
I don't care about the rest of the aspects.
There's
We
no
hate you.
antagonist that's...
Yeah, and I think, so part of the problem is they put so much on Tenzin. And
And him
you
being a
can't-
DMPC is
Yeah,
rough.
you can't have, well, so I think, I don't know if I've said this on any of the shows, but my first pitch to Nick was to have him play Tenzin.
I wish he had. I really wish he had, because that would have made it a lot more interesting, I think.
I mean, so the problem with that is Tenzin doesn't show up until 4 episodes in or something like that. Having...
Nick could have sat there making faces at us for 4 seconds.
I mean, he could have been, in another...
Anything. Yeah. And
someone who
They could have
doesn't
done
want
Decker
to.
first or something.
Right.
Or someone who was going to the Cave of 1,000 Buddhas for some reason and stayed there.
Right. And I wish that I had followed through on that, because I think having Tenzin as a PC and knowing full well, you tell the Tenzin player up front, here's everything that's happening. Here's everything you've got all these cool powers. You can do all sorts of neat things, but you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And you're
it's
gonna
be,
and
it's gonna be for nothing.
Yeah. And I think also if Tenzin were a player, that dying for nothing would have meant, like, that would have been a better moment.
Yeah.
Just because, I was keeping the trains moving, and so that didn't really have the weight, of Tenzin going. And the structure of the module, Tenzin is DM NPC and sort of protagonist, means that you can't have that antagonist.
Right.
That because if Nick's playing Tenzin, then I'm having the Children of Fear hunt you across the sands.
Right.
That would have been better, I think.
Yeah, it would have been a more interesting, a more
active.
Yeah, a lot of this module is very passive.
Yes.
A lot of this module happens to the characters.
Right.
And I think that's why I've had such a hard time with this module, is it's like we never really felt like we had agency. And that's not your fault.
No,
you gave us a lot of room to have agency, and I think we had more than the module allowed for. It's just a fault of the module.
Yeah, I think there's micro and macro to that. I think on the macro level, there's no agency. On the micro level, there were moments where you could have done things and that sort of thing, and you did do different things and that sort of thing. But for the most part, the sort of the overarching part of it was kind of, well, we're going to go here and do this. Mm-hmm. Why?
Because Tenzin told us
Yeah.
to.
Right.
Was this 7th edition first module, or was this a remake of a previous edition?
No, this is a new campaign.
Okay.
And look,
So, and Lynn Hardy is who we blame at all?
I'm not blaming anybody because many parts of this module are really good.
Yes.
Like the individual sections of this module are excellent. There's a lot of interesting moral quandaries that are written into the thing, and there are a lot of very interesting set pieces, and it's very good at making the Silk Road a character kind of in the game. But it has, I think, some challenges. The DM NPC is a big challenge. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do. It's hard to do well because the DM's thinking about 7 other things, and the DM NPC always disappears for long periods of time,
and should.
And should, but that makes Tenzin less interesting. Tenzin is more fun when he is there all the time, kind of being weird guy who doesn't like wheels.
Is it possible? Is it possible to do the module without Tenzin?
So there is, yes,
is
but
it-
then it becomes a lot more lore dumpy. You find a book that says this,
Or, you step into the cave or whatever, and you have these visions, and then that you need to do this.
Yeah,
thing.
and so, Tenzin is sort of the nice, the less overt way of doing that. But having Tenzin as a player brings that unreliability into things as well. Because
then he feels human.
He feels human, but also just, DM NPC, we all metagame to know, okay, we're going to go where the DM NPC tells us to go.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's a player saying, I really think we should, go this way, I've, 1,000 years been, that then you're like,
You have to think about it.
why is
right?
that?
Right.
What is your game in all this? Tenzin, I think, was a big opportunity, a fun character that I think would have been much better as a player.
So on that regard, this goes to another question that is in here. What happens if we don't let Tenzin die during that ritual?
Yeah, what happens if there is no human sacrifice?
The ritual fails. Although really what happens is the Children of Fear come and do it. And so it becomes like a pit. If somehow you had all passed your con checks against the hallucinogenic and stuff like that, then the Children of Fear attack. And they do the ritual. They drive you off and do the ritual.
What if they slaughter the PCs?
It could happen. They're pretty powerful.
And
and
Tenzin, because the whole you said early on that Tenzin's whole thing was if we drop off for whatever reason, he'll go find someone else.
Yeah.
Another group of people.
And that's actually
But
in the
if he
in the
dies?
module. They're if Tenzin dies, then you start having the visions of doing things, and you smell peach blossoms, and by the time he dies, you've probably gotten some idea of what you have to do, and then it just becomes sort of hand-holding to get you where you need to go.
I would feel like if we were, especially given where the characters were at that point, if we were attacked, we would have just fought to the death.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We would have just...
And then just game over?
we would have died.
Yeah, I
essentially.
mean, it would have been a discussion. It would have been a discussion of whether we want it. Is that our story? Is that
And sometimes that is a perfectly valid story.
Yeah. Yeah. And there have been times when like as Tiana rightly noticed, like if I hadn't accelerated the entrance to Shambhala, that might have been the end of our story, right there after the.
Yeah.
Because at least two of the PCs were so discouraged that they were like, sorry, where's the nearest gun?
And as a GM, that was an interesting moment because I wanted to sit in that moment and sort of see where you'd go. But you guys were already so in the moment that you were just like, there's only one place I'm going, and it's and so then I had to be like, oh, wait a minute, we better zip this forward.
Actually, Dead Boy makes a good point. Having Amy play Tenzin with Nick playing Eugene.
That would have been fantastic.
I would have just eaten popcorn and watched that.
They would have killed each other like.
So I'll tell you another thing that I pitched to Nick that he didn't like, but I still love. I wanted his children to be the children of fear.
Ooh. Okay.
And I wanted.
Don't know, my nephews were pretty.
I mean. So I feel weird talking about the kids without Nick here too much.
It's kind of rough doing a lot of this conversation without Nick here. Get better.
But it was like when he first started pitching those ideas to me, I was like, oh God, we already have a DM NPC. I'm not sure. And he, in a beautiful, sweet, innocent kind of way, never saw those three metallic horrors as anything bad.
I'm so glad he didn't.
Yeah.
Because the moment they showed up, Gwendolyn was like, the fuck, you say?
How many episodes was that sort of a secret? 2 or 3?
It was a while.
Yeah, it was a secret for a little bit because
Never tell Dimitri a secret. That's the takeaway.
That's a takeaway.
Rule number 1, Dimitri will not keep secrets.
But I wanted his children to be sort of that final, and I was thinking a little too old school, 80s D&D of there needs to be a big bad guy at the end. And when Nick was like, no, I don't want that to be the kids, I was like, maybe there doesn't. Maybe the end, especially as I started to think about Buddhism and how the whole point of Buddhism is that you just keep going.
That cycle.
The cycle,
and having that cycle become part of the end of the story, I thought was pretty meaningful.
And this is one of the reasons why, you are a great DM, is that no, serious, because you do that. And one of
Dungeon
the things,
Master.
GM. Game master.
GM.
No, I'm an okay dungeon master, but
right.
I look terrible in latex.
All right, keeper. I'll call you keeper. But that's why, because we have these. I've played with other people who stick right to the module and you do it, and that's cool, because you can do it like that. But you've been able to switch and change and move, and that's been very good. Being able to talk to you about these kind of things.
Well, that's something that I've learned from you as a baby GM with things like Stormwreck Isle, where it's like, this is what the module says, and I generally keep to the lines, but it's fun to go out of bounds now and again.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes that, if I make that decision, I'll be like, oh, this will be cool to do here instead. And then later on, because I don't read modules all the way through, I'll be like, oh man, I changed that thing and that screws the whole story up.
Yeah, you do.
That's why you have to read the whole thing first.
Yeah, that knowing where everything is definitely can help you with your improv, but then then you start layering. And I see you're writing all your stuff, for Chaos Agents, you're writing all of that. And I'm pretty open, I think, about how the struggles that I had with Down Darker Trails, because when I write anything, I have a cool image, or a set piece. And I almost never have a third act, and the third act is always a problem. And so one of the reasons that I love to take something like Children of Fear, where we stayed fairly close to the module, not totally. There was there's no weird force shield protecting the monastery. Or
I did love that, honestly.
I liked I liked showing that the Children of Fear weren't powerless, but that, they weren't the impediment. Because that whole last part of it, the antagonist of the story were you.
Yeah.
You and not, I don't mean that like, the players are the real villains. I mean, the antagonists were like, are you even going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
As you struggled with your self-doubt and with, all of that stuff. And that to me was more interesting than any fight with Franklin Kingdon Ward.
Which made it, which was actually really interesting then in that final episode, because the climax of that episode was right before the break when Dimitri and Gwendolyn had that conversation.
Yeah.
Where it was like, here are my reasons, here's what's going on. That was one of the most emotional conversations I've had in a TTRPG ever. It was great, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
After that, the ritual felt kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, the whole...
Which was fine.
Yeah, the ritual was... I think even in any version, the ritual was pretty anticlimactic. The interesting part of that whole final scene is who's going to be the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is it a fight? Is it a not a fight? Fight's wrong. Is it a conflict? Is
Sure.
it an easy decision? What does that mean to the other people? And how quickly you all sort of accepted it was kind of interesting. And actually, there was a layer effect because the conversation that you had with Dimitri,
Yeah.
I really felt like kind of got him to the like I don't want to die place.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really appreciated that. That was
Well,
awesome.
and I didn't think about it until afterwards, but when it came down to it, it was going to be Gwendolyn or Dimitri doing the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And Dimitri was way better choice for it to be a lot less painful because Gwendolyn was not going to make that medicine check. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, even with a 70 in medicine, I feel like...
The one time you couldn't kill your patient.
He was like
Wow.
a fake doctor this whole time, just because I couldn't roll under a 70.
I'm trying to think of other things that weren't in the module. The flying ship is not in the module.
Of course not.
Yeah.
I just had to get you guys into Tibet somehow.
Was there an inspiration for how the ship is powered?
I've been listening to a lot of the Revolutions podcast, and fantastic podcast. But I've been listening to their arc on the Russian Revolution, and I had just been listening to the Rasputin episodes, and I was like, that was I knew that I wanted to connect something to Dimitri because that was right about the time. Right before that was when you really started to be like, why am I doing? Why why is all this happening? And so, in my head, it was either A, this gives you an opportunity to be like, I'm gonna go save Russia with these guys later. I finally have I finally feel good about what I'm doing, or it would be sort of a, oh wait, there are more important things I need to do. Little did I know that once again Nick would. So he tried to he had this whole thing about how he was going to try and merge with the ship.
Stars and Stones.
Wow.
I'm looking at the message right now, and Cronenberg is referenced several times. He wanted to. He was like he had this whole idea about how he was going to take the ship over, and it's going to be a whole thing. But then you shot him.
I think he mentioned that to me actually.
Yeah, I think epilogue. Dimitri found that ship again and is probably, dropping bombs on communists.
No, you didn't. You stayed in heaven.
Yeah, you stayed in heaven.
You
You're
stayed. Like
you're-
Gwendolyn almost said, "Go back. You can do things."
Yeah.
But you're playing Unicorn Polo.
Yeah.
And Tiger. That was the other
Yeah,
thing. Was
that
once
was
once
wow.
Tiger was.
Yeah.
Although who knows how Tiger got into heaven? That is.
He conned his way past the
Yeah,
lines.
Tiger is.
And once he's there, no one's gonna kick him out.
Stealing for good.
Feeling for good. Yes.
That was that, and as you're kind of making stuff up as you're playing, as a GM, as you make things up, there needs to be a why, and the why could just be I think this will be cool, but there needs to be a where does this sit in the story?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
sometimes it's I had a couple Thomas moments where I was like, I need a little more time to read more of the module, so let's have an interlude. When you're making stuff up, sometimes you just do it on the fly, and that's fine. But you need to find the connective tissue so that it's not just totally out of left field.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So another question I had for y'all was when we first started out with that journey, along the Silk Road, we sort of all decided that it was less interesting to do the I'm going to have this many yaks and do all this stuff and that sort of thing, and kind of redline that travel, which I think was the right choice. But
in the module, is there a lot of logistics?
Oh, there can be, yeah. There can be
that's so
some
boring.
There can be some
shopping episode.
Make these rolls to get
10
this.
shopping episodes in our 21 episode arc.
Yeah.
No.
But there's also there's story in that. There's a couple of really legitimately interesting bits that don't show up, and there's also weirdly one thing this module does. You came to a point where you could take two different routes, either a northern route or the upper or the lower route.
The southern route.
Yeah, and if you take one route, there's here are 3 encounters, and if you take the other route, here are 3 encounters, and I was starting to because there was one that the thing that didn't show up that I kind of miss. There's a great bit about a woman who was forced into an arranged marriage and wouldn't do it. And so the guy killed her or thought he killed her, but she woke up in the graveyard and she thought she was dead and she thinks she's a ghoul. Oh. She thinks she's a pisacha. And so you come upon this feral creature that is that smells of death and is eating dead bodies. But it's a woman, not a pisacha. And how do you bring her back to the village? Do you,
I have a feeling that there would have been a combat well before we would have found out any of that backstory.
Probably.
But it would have been, it also adds an interesting layer to when you later on find the Temple of the Pisacha. Which is that's one of my favorite parts of the module. The idea of a holy war among these monsters that you've sort of spent a long time in this module learning to hate and having to work with some of them possibly, that sort of thing. I thought was a cool.
I was still even through that whole encounter. I didn't know if that was these are bad people or these are good people.
Does it matter?
I don't think they were. I mean,
or are they on our side? Or
that
right.
Because I had all this time it's Pisacha are just weapons of the children of fear.
Yeah.
It's I kind of wish they'd introduced the idea of that goddess that is the goddess of the Pisacha a little earlier, so that it would have been already kind of established. And I think a common trope in Cthulhu games that I'm not a huge fan of is since you made your occult roll, here's what you know about this sort of thing. And so I'm always trying to figure out ways to a little more organically do lore dumps and things like that. But I wish that I had done a little more of that, because I think it's a cool idea to think that I'm a human, but I care because I follow this goddess. I take care of the Pisacha, which is a neat idea. And because I take care of them, they like me, they're and
they are sentient beings of their own.
Yeah. What did you think about there not being any mythos in this?
Well, I mean, there were rituals and spells that Nick was involved in.
But he didn't really have to do much mythos rolling, did he?
No, and by that I mean, there was no Cthulhu, there was no,
no deep ones at all
or
anything like that.
Yeah,
that's where I wasn't sure how it meshed in with the universe.
The universe. Yeah, it definitely felt outside of the universe.
Yeah,
The
and
whole-
and I mean, I think that's by choice. You know, there's no mythos content in the book. It is all Indian folklore and Chinese folklore and that sort of thing.
I don't think that really bothered me, but I think that's because we had just done DDT, and there wasn't really like a mythos bad guy
Right.
in all of that. Like, we've only had that once in the 3 campaigns with Masks of Nyarlathotep. It isn't like we've been dealing with the King in Yellow or Cthulhu or, you know, any number of, you know, Azathoth or
Right.
whatever else. We've only dealt with Nyarlathotep, and even then,
mean,
really only the aspect
You met
of
Azathoth.
Yeah.
briefly.
Briefly. and yeah, like you said, it didn't bother me that. It just, you know, I wasn't sure how it meshed, that's all.
I really like the idea of mining folklore for the sort of every folklore has ideas that you could totally think are mythos related, you know,
Yeah.
and you can find them. And I think, you know, part of the trick is making sure that you are sensitive to the culture. And, you know, if you're going to make Kali the bad guy of your thing, make sure that you talk to someone who is of that religion about all the many aspects of Kali and that you reflect all of them.
Yeah. Well, I was curious about your thoughts about that because, I mean, none of us are Buddhist or in that particular ethnic demographic. For some people, that is their current religion, as current as Christianity or Judaism.
Yeah.
What is your thought on that being mined, as you say, for a module?
So the book, Children of Fear, has a number of sensitivity readers, both Chinese and Hindu, Buddhist, and so that helps. I think having people from the community that you're telling the story of.
Sure.
I think about what Chris Spivey says in Harlem Unbound. Still the best thing, the best
I didn't
Chaosium
read
thing.
that.
It is fantastic. But you know, these are stories that should be told, and you know, knowing when it's your story to tell and when it isn't is a fine line. And you know, when you're, you know, I don't think it's our place to tell stories about slavery or something like that. But I think, you know, when you're using parts of folklore, as long as you're using them in culturally sensitive ways, and as long as you are reflecting the cultures through their own prism, not through the prism of, you know, this is what I read in the Idiot's Guide to Buddhism.
Right.
You know, like you know, before I ran this game, I read Journey to the West. So did Nick. It's a great book. If you haven't read Journey to the West, it's bananas.
Most of what I've been exposed to for Journey of the West is Overly Sarcastic Productions' retelling of it. Red is very good at retelling the stories, and her illustrations are amazing.
It's well worth reading just because, you know, you think to yourself, this was written 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years ago.
It's considered to be one of the first novels, right?
And it's insane. It's just like the writing of it is so contemporary in many ways, but it's also so unhinged. Just like freaking Monkey is just
Monkey's terrifying.
Monkey's like, well, we'll just slaughter the village. You know, just randomly.
Monkey is a character that Amy would play.
Yeah, but yeah.
I was wondering about that. But no, it's good that you know we get to learn about some of these things by playing and being immersed into them. I thought that was really really good.
I think that one thing that you know, as you're sort of like, and we keep going and we keep going and we keep going, it sort of becomes set dressing. And so how do you make and so how do you make it not just set dressing? And I think the game has several points where it does well. And I think the example of the Temple of the Pisacha is a good. That's a way of taking the folklore and inculcating it in the world. So it's not just, here's a handout about this place, because it does a lot of that. There's a lot of like, here's a handout about this place, but then like the whole bit about the palace that is a torture chamber and that sort of thing that gets worked into things. You know, that's how you can take folklore and kind of start to mine it into things.
Well, and even to a kind of overarching story degree, the karma mechanic did that too, where like these Western white people had to be like, no, karma's real.
Yeah.
And it's not the way that we thought of it.
Yeah, the karma mechanic is one of my favorite parts. That idea, and it's funny because the book sandbags when you read it. It doesn't mention karma until like the second or third chapter, which I mean is neither. It's not a plus or a minus, but I actually kind of liked it. It was kind of an interesting choice, but I love the idea of sort of, you know, here are kind of 8 broad precepts of karma. And I just had I would just make check marks, you know, positive, negative. And it's interesting because karma, the concept of karma is such a diverse thing that you could almost, like any decision, you could go either way. And so it would just sort of be like, I would just make an incredibly quick judgment call. And just like,
Sure.
Nope, that's... you know, because the example they give is the thief who is robbing a house, and he realizes that the house he's robbing is a murderer who is going to kill many, many people. And so the thief kills the person.
Sure.
And that's, you know, that was the right thing to do in terms of karma, because he saved many people, even though he was doing a bad thing. You know, which, you know, that it's hard to like wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you have to do some hand waving and be in the moment and just be like, that felt like a positive karma, that felt like a negative karma, that sort of thing.
Dimitri was just the best among us.
Well, I mean, part of that is baked into the character of like, I'm a doctor.
The doctor.
You know?
Yeah.
And interestingly, like in terms of karma, you killing that poor guy that you were trying to heal is still the right karma move. You know, bad medical move, but the right karma move because you were trying to help him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
So
if you,
it's a lot about intent.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a lot. Well, yeah, it's about intent, but it's also about impact.
Interesting.
You know, because that's the whole thing is like the thief's intent is to rob this guy, but once he realizes that the impact that this person will have is so bad, and he heads that off, that becomes positive karma.
Interesting.
Yeah, something to think about.
And I mean, it can be almost diametric, where you're like, you know, the margin between is this positive or negative can depend on what happens 10 years from now.
Sure.
Right.
You know,
Well,
that
it's that idea of, you know, go back in time and kill Hitler.
Or you collect things and give them to a museum, and people.
that was a bad karma mark every time. That was, but I really like that idea, and then I like that the game had a mechanic of what was going to happen with that karma.
Yes.
So that, you know, the choices that you made didn't have a huge impact.
But it also did.
Yeah. Well, and I really like how you all reacted to, you know, that scene was sort of I was challenged by how I was going to do that scene because, you know, you're all seeing different things and you're all getting a different message. And I really liked how you all reacted to and played off of your version of that. I thought that was, and sort of didn't let the other, what, you know, like you're, if you're seeing the sort of gray bureaucratic one, you're not like resentful that you're not seeing the white cloud until later.
Right.
Well, yeah, when I heard about it later.
Yeah, then you're cheesed off. Yeah.
Man, you know.
I mean, even then, Gwendolyn was like, yeah, no, I get it.
The amount of impaling that happens in Unicorn Polo is off the charts.
They need a new ball all the time. It is.
Balls.
And I liked that. You know, that when they took you to that heaven, even though you had the best karma, it was still like, we're still going to kick you out. You know, you've still, you know, it's just, we're very nicely going to tell you you're an idiot. You know.
Yeah.
Very nice. Going to tell you that you got screwed.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that was actually the difference. Was if you were in the hell version of it, you idiot, what have you done? And if you're in heaven, it's like, we're really sorry this happened to you. We hope you'll help us make it right. You know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if you've got other questions.
One of the questions that didn't get asked that I'd be interested in, because Julie, you had opportunity to bring in a new character.
Yes.
Very early in the stream, we were asked. I've lost it. It says it has gone too far. Basically, what's the best and worst character concepts that didn't make it in?
Oh, wow.
Just before, let me jump in and then
Yeah.
you can do yours.
Yeah.
Because just before the stream, I brought Dr. Phil out.
No, there is a.
He's going to be the new character.
That's very
Tell
much.
me about
So,
your mother.
That's very much a rocks fall, everyone dies kind of character.
Really, any concept Thomas comes up with is the worst character concept. That's it.
All right.
Oh yeah, no. So So basically asking about how did I pick which character, or
Well, I mean,
kind of like
you
different characters.
you had a week to think about a new character
Right.
that you would bring in.
Right.
What were some of the concepts that you were thinking about?
right. So I
And
want
how did you settle on
Archibald,
On Archibald,
the big
Archibald.
game hunter. Well, I wanted to have somebody who had more to do, and I figured that if I was a big game hunter and I was from England and I could be bigger, and I also could be able to help scout out things, because that's being able to see things. And then you guys didn't seem like you had a lot of firepower, and we had Dimitri, but yeah. So I thought
Not
that was-
asking about the mechanics. I want to know about the character.
Well, that's
The character's always more interesting than the mechanics.
Always.
But that's kind of like how I was thinking about it. And then I said, okay, what kind of, that's what I said about the big game hunter was the kind of thing I wanted to do, something bigger. I did talk to Nick about the actor thing, because we went back and forth on who was going to do that one, because I thought that would have been, and I said, dude, you thought of it, you could have it, but it was the idea of going, yes, I could do anything because I know how to do this. I've done this on stage. I've done this, and oh crap, what the heck have I done? Was very compelling to me. Other kind of characters that I looked at, I was trying to remember. The big game hunter was probably the very first one that I thought of. I also thought of, because I was trying to think of things that we didn't have yet, right? Things that I could bring that were. And then it's something that I could go pretty quickly with. I didn't have to have a huge backstory, because I knew there was only going to be a couple of things. And I thought the people go, oh, big game hunter, I know what that is. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I picked it.
Well, and you had the brother thing, which was nice.
Yes.
That was a good sort of other note for the character that
Right.
you could bring in.
Right.
It is, it's a challenging place to bring in a new character,
Yeah.
just
Sure.
because we're so close to
with
the end.
one episode or
Yeah.
Two
episodes left.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So
that's why I was
you're
trying to
not
look
going
for
to get a
something.
lot of stuff in. So you're just like, what can I fit in?
Exactly.
in this
Exactly. So
space?
that's kind of
My
like
character
I
is a
think-
rifle.
Yeah. No, I mean basically, that.
Danny McGunderson.
Yeah.
Well, that and being able, and I thought the other part of it was like, oh, I heard about these people who are looking for interesting creatures. Well, that's what a big game hunter does, look for interesting creatures. So that's kind of how it came. And I didn't have that many more ideas. Like I said, I talked to Nick and a couple other things, but that was the one that came to me pretty much like, yes, I could do this in two.
I'm always trying to put bad ideas in Nick's head about characters that I think he should play.
You
just
two
because-
play off of each other just entirely too well for my sanity.
I say Amy's my muse, but Nick might actually be my Cthulhu muse, just because Nick comes to every character and he's just like, what's the worst thing that could happen to this character? And how can I then make it worse? And, there's a, from a role playing, especially in Cthulhu, there's a power in that. Mm-hmm. There's a power in being so willing to give up, I don't know. We all want our characters to do well.
Yeah. Totally.
And being able to say that for me, this character doing well is a ridiculous death, or is Like I always talk about, we were in a game we were playing years and years ago. Nick's character was in Carcosa, and he heard this guy that they'd been trying to find laugh and run off, and so Nick ran into this maze, and I'm like, look,
If you do this,
the guy knows the maze, you don't. If you do this, you're gonna die. And Nick's like, yeah, but I gotta do it.
That's what he would do.
Okay, you know.
That is one of the Nick is one of the few people who I trust when he says that's what my character would do.
Right, because Nick knows that the right time to say it's what my character would do is when it impacts that character.
Yes.
The wrong time to say it's what my character would do is when it impacts another character. And that's a super important point that Nick has, since I've known him, I think has, except for Groove Master Beats.
That was the warning shot from Joe.
It was the.
So I mean, and this kind of touches on like one thing I like about Cthulhu is that it's real people who then get into extraordinary circumstances. The thing that to do Cthulhu well, your character has to go insane or has to die, and because you can't not see, the mythos as
I think there is a third path, which is survivor's guilt.
Ooh.
Which is like everyone around me has died or gone insane. And what is that like? There's a fantastic campaign that it's for Trail of Cthulhu, but I would run it in Call of Cthulhu. But the shtick of it is that 30 years ago, Cthulhu Group X saved the world, or did they? Ooh. And you have to track down these people who thought they saved the world and are now living with the fact that they didn't. Which kind of ties into some of the Children of Fear stuff.
Yeah. Like if we'd gone off after the ritual and been like, fuck it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you hadn't done the ritual, I probably would have done something where there would have been a second party that Tenzin found and was like, they still have the horn, they still have the Katvanga, so we're going to go and there would have been scenes with each of these people as these new poor sods are like, the guy with the peaches tells us we need a bone flute from you.
Oh, God. We all just looked at them pityingly.
Right. Oh, you're the new.
Oh,
you're the new guys.
Dead Boy 42 wants to know what's the difference between Call of Cthulhu and Trail of Cthulhu.
Ooh.
So, Trail of Cthulhu was a systematic response to a game system response to what the authors thought were challenges with Call of Cthulhu. That I think 7th edition has cured a lot of, but one of the old jokes was like, if you fail the roll, you don't get the clue.
Yeah.
And that's if you're playing with a good GM, that's not the case. If you fail the roll, you're getting the clue, but.
Yeah.
But in Trail of Cthulhu, your skills are actually pools. So like if I have a 4 in investigation, I can spend a point of investigation and I'll get a clue.
Interesting.
I could also say to the GM, I'm going to spend 2 points of investigation. Maybe I'll get something more if I do that. Sometimes it can be as transactional as the GM will say, I have 1 and 2 point clues. You can decide. And so there becomes like a resource management aspect to it, which is interesting, but sometimes can take you out of role playing. It's very much a as much as D&D is, there are going to be some great scenes in between the fights. Trail of Cthulhu is, there's going to be some great scenes in between the investigation. And so it's sort of maybe in trying to fix one problem, it creates a different problem. For me personally.
Well, sure. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect gaming system.
Yeah.
Like, I've been learning how to play Fate lately, which very much plays into the
Love me some Fate.
You fail in order to succeed.
Yeah.
Like, you will fail and fail and fail, but when you succeed, you really succeed. And it's really a great system. I've been having a great time learning it. But to your point of, failing a lot.
Yeah.
It's more interesting that way, but like there are things that happen in Fate that it's like, okay, but
I will say Trail of Cthulhu does, I think, a better job with the sanity mechanic. Delta Green also does, I think, a better job with the sanity mechanic than Cthulhu Straight does. Delta Green does a worse job in terms of dealing with the actual kind of trivializing mental health aspect of it, in terms of like,
Sure.
Oh, your insanity is you're paranoid now. Oh, here's what that means. Call of Cthulhu falls prey to that too. I ignore that all completely. I find like the idea of like you get a generic insanity. That was fun when I didn't know better.
That is something that I appreciate about the way that we do it with redacted reports, where it's like when you have when you hit your breaking point, the player and the GM sit down and are like, all right, what makes sense for where the character is, and how does that affect them going forward? So with Rory, it was a sleep disorder. With Rooster, this isn't just spoiler, depression.
And I sort of have in over the years, I've just turned it into fight, flight, or freeze.
Sure.
And that's and then every once in a while there'll be a longer term thing if
I was afraid of mirrors.
if you got the mirrors.
Yeah.
But
Which is a kind of paranoia.
yeah. But
What was that from?
that was from the mirror.
Oh, okay.
Because you were looking in the
when
saw.
you look too often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You
because
delve too greedily and too deep.
Yeah.
man, breaking that mirror, that was probably that
was
mirror.
rough.
That mirror was super useful
Yeah.
in many cases.
If only just to tell us who the Children of Fear were.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Kingdon Ward.
just look at him in the mirror.
And you'd be like,
Why is he ashy? I don't know. What that
Hi.
but I like Trail of Cthulhu for a lot of things, but it's a little too mechanical for me, and it's a little. I mean, it also can be like frustrating. Like you're like, I spend 3 points of investigation, and then you're like, well, that's what I'm going to do today. It's like you're a first level wizard again. Can we get a long rest?
Yeah.
It's a-
Yeah.
Or a warlock these days. Run through your spell slots. Can we take a short rest?
You always have Eldritch.
yeah, I've got Eldritch Blast. What the hell else do I need?
I love the Twitter, questions are always like, if you had one cantrip, what would it be? It's always good. It's always
Yeah, Eldritch Blast.
Always.
Eldritch Blast.
And now Tidwell can fight, so I don't need spells at all.
There you go.
Like, but
Prestidigitation. That's my choice.
Prestidigitation. Yeah.
Prestidigitation is the role-playing answer.
Clean
Toll
things.
bell.
Clean things. Make tea. Leave little messages for people to mess with them.
Dirty things up too.
I don't usually have a reason where I need to make people upset with me.
Just watching heads explode all around you. I mean,
Is Magic Mouth a cantrip? I don't remember.
No,
Or do I-
I think that's a first level.
I used to enjoy Magic Mouth. I would just always set it up around
Phrasing.
places.
I knew someone was going there.
We have, if we have any more questions, feel free to get them in. One thing that I wanted to talk about was the use of real world kind of locations, like the Cave of 1,000 Buddhas, the Silk Road, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Did it add to it? Was it travelogue-y? Was it too much? Was it just a shtick? Was it sort of, pasted on theme?
It was the first time that I have really understood Ben's impulse to have Google Maps open, because I was having a hard time. Everyone knows this about me now. I can't picture things. I think in words, not pictures. So trying to picture the map and where we were relative to everything and how long things were taking made that kind of dreary for me, personally.
Yeah, but I did like the idea of that, real world kind of things that we were going through, because we were in the real world, and being able to see it and then look at the maps that you brought out and everything like that. That was very good. Yeah, being able to see it and feel it. I thought that was very good, and people could relate to it too, I think.
I think I'm glad we didn't do like extensive overland role playing.
Right.
Where it was
That,
like,
that would have taken forever.
Yeah, that would have been, well, let's roll and see if your yaks survived the tree. You know, that's not the interesting stuff to me.
Right. The part that we were there and we were on that road was interesting, but you know what happened along the road.
Yeah, the occasional sandstorm was interesting because, like, there was the one time that Gwendolyn was able to use her desert survival, but
I had no social skills. 0 social skills.
you were a doctor in Russia. Of course, you had no.
It's so hard to make a Cthulhu character, I think, because you have some, you want to be good in something, and that's all of your points.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's funny. I'm the opposite. I make the jack of all trades. Yeah. I want to be okay at everything because
otherwise you have nothing in
right.
some things.
But I have, there's a joke in the Call of Cthulhu world where it's like 30%. I like those odds, and
got a puncher's chance.
yeah,
You like to say.
and so I like put a 30 in every skill I can just to like have all sorts of different things because. You never know. Drive auto, all of a sudden, And that's part of the reason that I do the highlight one skill for each player because it has, in the past, it would be frustrating when you're like, I'm really good at this one thing. Mm-hmm. Well, that one thing will never come up.
Right. Right.
And so, okay, if I know that's a skill you want to have show up, then I'll do it. The problem is 70% of there's always somebody who's like, I'm really good at shooting. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. There's never been a game where somebody didn't get shot. That's going to be fine. But like...
I've got a 50 in knitting needle.
Hey, you know what? These things can be pretty deadly. Also, for those who have been asking, I'm making a scarf. It's a Christmas present for my sister.
Or a really long sock.
Well...
It's your Christmas stocking.
All the way up to the shoulder.
Yeah, that was my kind of stocking. Let's see. What...
Who ordered the cat nest? That's...
I don't
curious.
know, and
I don't know, but I kind of want one now. I like those. So that first part we did with the Jiangxi, that was all sort of me making stuff up.
It's $5.
Wow,
that's it.
At that price, you can't afford not to buy it.
I'm
sure your dog's.
I'll wait till after Christmas because I'm curious.
I don't know if your dog would fit in there.
No. Oh, the small is $23. The large is...
I mean, obviously I'm going to get the large, if only just because my cats will fight over it.
78%.
Oh,
the
that's
economy
off.
of scale.
Well, we are going into like the cyber week.
Yeah.
Well, what they don't tell you is that the large is made of like...
Asbestos?
Yeah. The large is the plastics that are no longer allowed to, that leach out the unfortunate thing.
14% 1-star reviews, though.
That's it?
Were they upset there weren't noodles in it?
Product is much lower quality than what is shown on the photos.
What?
Stitching is not the best. For $5? False advertisement on high-quality material.
Wow.
All right. Well, the question that keeps getting repeated in the chat, so I'm going to ask it so that we stop having it thrown at our heads at a rapid velocity. How do you think your previous campaign characters would have handled the Season 3 scenario?
Oh, interesting question.
Well,
there's been like
Jackson
4 people
Elias.
who have asked that, so at this point...
Jackson Elias.
Would have busted this wide open.
No, that's Elias Jackson.
Oh, that's Elias Jackson.
Jackson Elias would have died. As, as the incident.
You would have been the sacrifice in the...
Oh, I think Ramsey would have done fine.
Alexandria would have killed Eugene much sooner.
Yeah.
He would have made it maybe 3 episodes before she slit his throat in his sleep.
I wonder if you try to sacrifice an immortal monkey.
There you go.
I mean, theoretically, it would work. It would just turn the sacrificer
you'd just
into the
become a
immortal
monkey.
monkey.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think if, because, Joan, she would have bashed everything.
I think my favorite part of this entire module were the Eugene's children, because they just created
so much chaos,
but they created an emotional fulcrum for Eugene, because that was the first thing he cared about.
Oh yeah.
And that was and they created emotional fulcrum for everyone else because they're terrifying.
Because we hated them.
Yeah. Yes. And that your emotions were at direct opposites. where Eugene was like, no, they're lovely.
You're like,
And Gwendolyn was like, you're calling them children. They're automatons at best.
I very intentionally wanted them to know that Tenzin was wrong. Mm-hmm. And so they were always like, don't trust the llama. The children were the first ones to say that.
Yeah.
Which was a big part of the reason why Gwendolyn didn't trust them, because it was like, we're doing this whole thing at the behest of Tenzin.
Yeah.
If he's wrong, then we've done this for nothing.
Yeah. When Nick created that idea of making those things, I was just like, I think he and I had different visions of them, because he was like, I pictured these weird metallic skeletons, and he's like, I'm adding pieces on, and I was like, how does that work? I don't know.
Soldering iron.
Yeah, he saw them much more doll-like.
Yes.
I think after the weird little. That's one of my favorite parts of this module is the little dolls that come to life in the town that are stealing things. Early on.
Yes.
I enjoyed that part of it.
I've spent too much time around Five Nights at Freddy's. I just see the Bitty Babs and went, nope.
Did I do in one of our home games? Did I do the evil marionette? The guy on the boat who was I don't know. The evil marionette's a classic. I gotta work that. But see, that's the problem. I have to keep track of what shtick I've already used, because I don't want to reuse it. And then I'm like, oh fudge, I've already done that. Oh man.
I mean, you can do the same shtick if you come at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Some
of them, sure.
I can't do. I would not want to do the player curse again, like I did with Nick and the immortal gorilla thing. That was, and there's some things some of the. I will often change the mythos monster that a scenario uses because
everyone
I've
knows
already
the
done it,
monsters.
or deep ones. Everybody knows deep ones. We use deep ones in math, and I always want to use something different. And more often than not, I just make something up because I don't want to deal with people.
That person in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah, the person was like, "Oh, that's probably a Byakhee." I'm like, I don't care. Who knows what it is? I don't have Cthulhu mythos. I don't.
Yes,
no.
you do. That's why you're as insane as you are.
Yeah.
No, that's a lot of sugar. Really, is what that.
How are the gummy worms doing? Gummy bears?
Gummy bears.
Worms?
5 pounds of Albanese gummy bears. I love it.
Wow.
All right. Well, you know what? I think it's time to talk. We've talked a lot about the past. Well, are there any other questions about anything
I think
here?
that's a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about the past a lot. Let's talk about the future.
Ooh.
So the Great Danes will ride again, and they're going to ride a train. In 2023, the Orient Express will be departing at some point. Quests and Chaos is we're upgrading a lot of stuff. We're looking at there are going to be a lot of changes around here, and change can be hard, but it's always a good thing. Change is always growth, and our channel has grown. Our space is going to grow. The cool things we can do here are going to grow, and that's going to be. Sometimes it'll feel like things are ending, but they're not ending. They're just changing and they're moving forward, and that's not a bad thing. So much like we've already dealt with a lot of change when we lost Amy, when we had when the world ended the first time. Change has been a constant with the Great Danes, and it will continue to be so. But in 2023, we will be at this table with an awesome group of people, and we will be playing the beast that is Horror on the Orient Express.
I'm so excited.
It is a longer campaign than Masks of Nyarlathotep. It is, we say this right up front. It is literally on rails. It is a travel log in every sense of the word. Oh, look, we're in Paris. oh look, we're in Trieste, you know, but it is the newly updated 7th edition version does a really good job of justifying that and making it not so much, making it not as apparent. And partly they do it by making the overarching goal a lot stronger than it was in the older versions. But it's fantastic. I've run it several times, and in the old version, so the last time I ran it for our home group, I got the 7th edition version in the middle of running it. Oh. And so all of a sudden I was like, I've got some new ideas. Hold on. But it is a fantastic campaign. It is also a juxtaposition because it is 1920s high society Europe, which is a really fun world to play around in and to create ridiculous, vapid people that, you kind of aren't sad when they die. And it is very much a tale of privilege. These are rich people, or they are fish out of water people who are wondering why they're there. But it's also, it is a tale of the impact of the Great War and how that war has changed the face of Europe. And that is always a big part of the story. It takes place in 1922, which is,
right
the
afterwards.
scars of the Great War are still evident everywhere, and will be evident in the characters. This will be your lived history. Even if you're American, this will have impacted you. And so that'll be where we go in 2023. We don't know when. We're looking at kind of a more modular approach to these, where there'll be a short season, and then we'll step out and another game will come in for 20 episode block or something like that. They'll come in and out. Things are still being figured out, but Cthulhu will be in front of you, will be played here in 2023, and we'll be playing it on a train.
And for those of you who hang out in our Discord, Dr. Christian Lehman is one of the people who hangs out in the Discord periodically. He's one of the original writers on Horror on the Orient Express. So if you want to poke him about some of the stuff that got changed, or talk to him about the story writing thing, some of his archive of emails and letters is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, he wrote the original. He was
one of the writers of the original.
One of the originals. And at its time, the original was groundbreaking.
Absolutely.
It was amazing. It was not quite. It never got the attention that Masks got,
which is a shame.
It's a very different story than Masks. But if you want to kind of grease your skids, there's an excellent the Miskatonic. Oh God, the Miskatonic Repository. They have an excellent audio version that actually became a book. Like they did it. The audio version was fantastic.
Wow.
They did a podcast, and then they made a book of it.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That was great. It definitely, there was some liberties taken with the story, as every GM should.
Every fan fiction should. I mean, just get more basic than that.
But it was really good. I think, I don't know. I got nothing else. Do you guys have anything? Any questions you guys have about the module or anything?
Was there anything big that we missed that you wish we hadn't?
I really like the story with Hasina, with the woman who thinks she's a pisacha. And I think that's
a big one?
Yeah. That's the only one that I was like, oh man, that's a really nice story beat. I like I said, I went back and forth on if a fight or some sort of confrontation with the Children of Fear might have made them a little bit more interesting, but it would need to happen early.
Mm-hmm. something to really seed why we personally are invested.
Yeah.
Were you running this at home as well?
No.
Not Children of Fear?
No, this is the first time I've run this.
Okay.
This is the very first time I've run it. And it's, like I said, I like it. It's
Would you run it again?
And what would you change?
I would want Tenzin to be a player if I were running it again. And I would want the Children of Fear to be more of a we're riding after you.
Yeah.
We can see, as our yaks are running around, we see, horses in the distance kind of, even if it's just watching. So in the module, the head of the Children of Fear is a Russian count. And sort of making him more of a kind of visible character. There's a Russian count, there's a Maori woman, and there's a Egyptian woman, I think maybe. They're the Children of Fear, and I mean, I would want to, I'd want to bring in the whole they eat, I got to eat somebody's brain, and I gain their, that's how we keep this whole thing going, and building up they have a whole structure they've built, of preparing for this. And so making that, kind of bring that in and making you feel like at every town, we're being watched and having that be a presence there would be something that I would do differently, I think.
Yeah, I think that would have really helped just to be have a reason for doing stuff besides just Tenzin say so. Mm-hmm. We made it work.
Yeah, yeah.
But...
Yeah, and giving... So in the module, they actually don't want you to doubt Tenzin.
Tough.
But they go to great lengths to be Tenzin is almost like Poochie. Tenzin is awesome. You should be thinking about Tenzin all the time. And I was I wanted to give doubt to that because I mean, to me, the most interesting answer in that ritual is if some people are what are we doing?
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, because I go back to the first ritual with Sri Chitty Potty, where Eugene was what are we doing? I'm not gonna. No, I'll be over here.
And then wound up dancing with Sri Chitty Potty.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But that to me is a more interesting thing than the kind of railroady you're going to take hallucinogens and that will force you to do this thing you don't want to do, which can be an interesting way to tell a story, but isn't the most interesting way to tell it. And so thinking about how, if somebody's no, we're not going to do this ritual, what would that mean, and how do you sort of make that happen? I think could be more interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's going to wrap it up for this thing that we're doing here.
That is.
Thank you all for a great campaign of Children of Fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was big fun. Feel better, Nick?
Yes.
Please.
And folks, don't forget that November 26th, our charity stream, 24 hours. I think you'll see everybody here at this table at some point during that time.
Yep.
Some of us more than you might want to.
We're just going to play Dead of Winter the entire 24 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you want us to murder each other? Oh, wait, no, sorry, that's Vagrant's song that we'll end up murdering each other.
Yes.
And I watched a fantastic playthrough of Vagrant Song by these guys. It's a London board game pub, and then the upstairs they've got a studio.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
It's actually really
cool.
And it's, I think it's...
I
don't know. I think it's going to be time in 2023 to get an actual board game table.
Yes.
I can suggest some good
Good but not crazy expensive.
good, but not wormwood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
no, there's some choices there. I also think that I would love to just leave a bunch of games here and create a library.
Yes, I know you would.
Oh,
No, we had to get storage space to put board games at to get them out of this.
Let us know.
But I'm always down for more board games. I love them. Internet friends, you are a huge part of everything we do here at Questka, but you are also a huge support system for us, and spiritually, emotionally, in every sense, and that is a beautiful thing. And it helps to sort of, it helps make this feel not like work.
Yeah.
Because when this feels like work, except for Thomas, because this is work for Thomas, when this feels like work, you lose a little something, and we.
It's 100% an unpaid job. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, it is for everybody, but for most, if we weren't doing it here, we'd be doing it at home, probably playing, not the whole camera setup and all that stuff.
No.
But it is a treat to be able to tell stories with all of you and with all of you, and it's a treat that hopefully will continue for a good long time.
And we will see you with GDS in the new year.
There you go.
At some point.
At some point.
Don't expect it right away.
Yeah.
Yes, we're taking some time to reconfigure and figure out what things look like.
Everything, yeah.
I have to read the module.
Yeah.
There's like 6 books.
Yeah,
Wow.
Quest and Chaos is going to look a bit different in the new year, so, keep an
I'm
eye
gonna
out
gain
for that. I'm trying to lose it, damn it.
There you go.
I wish I could.
There you go.
Goodbye, internet friends.
Get rid of those gummy bears.